Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Bernardston Select Board meeting for Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. And just a reminder that this meeting is being broadcast live on BNC TV and live streamed on YouTube. To find BNC TV on YouTube, search for the Bernardston-Northfield Community Television. This meeting will be available for later viewing by following the link at thetownofbernardston.org. We'll start tonight with the warrants. We'll entertain a motion for the payroll warrant in the amount of $48,167.89.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll entertain a motion for the vendor warrant in the amount of $82,539.23.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Entertain a motion for the special meeting minutes of October 17th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion for the regular meeting minutes of November 2nd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Calendar and announcements. The planning board will be having a meeting Thursday, November 17th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the town hall. The Council on Aging will be meeting Tuesday, November 29th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. at the Bernardston Senior Center. And just a reminder for all those out there listening that the winter parking ban is now in effect. And Highway Superintendent Brian Miner reported that during last night's winter weather, there were several cars that were parked on town streets. Last night's weather was somewhat mild. The Highway Superintendent has been given authority by this board to have any vehicles that impede plowing or sanding operations towed at the owner's expense. The winter parking ban remains in effect until April 1st, 2023. So just a reminder to all, when the weather's coming, if you could park other than on the roads, that would be much appreciated. So we're going to start tonight with Mr. Brad Bordewick and the public hearing for the shade trees. Come on up, Brad. How are we doing tonight?
Wonderful, how are you?
Good.
I think the goal is just to see if there's any public input on removing those trees.
And we have received none, correct, Lou?
There have been no comments whatsoever, Brad.
I didn't receive any either, so.
I received one, and it was from a lady that was visiting the memorial on Veterans Day. She wanted to know why we'd take down the nice tree, and that's been there forever. And I said, well, it hasn't been there forever because it was put up there by Kiwanis for the Christmas tree. I explained to her the reason why. I explained to her what we're doing with the magnolia tree, and she was very happy with that and had no issues with it beyond that.
All right.
Anything else we need to do with that, Lou?
Typically, the tree warden would read the legal notice to formalize the meeting, but if there's nobody here to contest any of the trees, I think you as a tree warden can make the decision that the trees are fine to be removed.
I think the goal is to replant for those listening. So as long as we're replanting, I don't think anyone would have an issue with
The only thing we're not replanting is that pine tree,
the spruce.
the spruce, yeah. We are replanting the magnolia.
Yeah. We can replant something else somewhere else to replace it.
yeah.
So it just won't be that tree in that spot. Yeah.
Okay, it sounds good to me.
So everybody knows, we're talking about a couple trees within Cushman Park over in the area of the Veterans Memorial, as well as a few kind of behind Dollar General that the Highway Superintendent has requested that you take down as well, just to
Yeah.
open the road up a little bit in that general area.
Yeah, we're doing the trees that are by the Vets Memorial are to gain better vista clearance to see the memorial.
Yeah.
And then the stuff on Merrifield, South Merrifield Road is because the folks that are doing the
Storage
units, thank you, because of their site work, the topography and the stormwater runoff is gonna just be kind of tricky with the way those trees are. So it's gonna kind of go into the road, and Brian had said that it would be better off on all fronts just to remove those and make a nice swale to get rid of that water.
Sounds reasonable.
And they're not in very good shape, so it made sense. So I think we're gonna kind of team up with that contractor to do some of the work, so it'll save the town some money.
Is there any place else over there to replant them?
Possibly.
Okay.
In that, it'll sort of depend on how things look post site work. So we'll kind of see how that goes, and if that's a good spot to replant, we will. If not, we'll do it somewhere else with the kids in the center of town.
Excellent.
Great.
Yep.
And where is the money gonna come from to get the money for the trees?
I don't know. I think we're potentially supposed to be getting some money from the solar stuff on Fox Hill, so that could potentially fund some of it.
Okay.
And then we're supposed to be getting some money. We already did receive some money from the folks on South Merrifield for the previous tree hearing.
Yep.
So,
Great.
And you'll need to give us an estimate of what it would cost to get another magnolia tree and to plant that. We could use that estimate like as soon as you can get it,
okay.
because we're applying for a grant and it'd be nice to have that listed in there as well.
Do you want it verbally, or would you prefer something in writing for the grant?
Something in writing
Sure.
would be great.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Ultimately, you guys have the final authority on removing the trees, so that was why I thought it made sense to try to do it here. But
I make a
I'm all right
motion
with
to allow the tree warden to remove the trees that were mentioned tonight on the public shade tree removal hearing.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
all
There
right.
you go. You're good to go.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we want to talk about the repeaters. Anybody that's involved with the repeaters, come on up. Dan, I know you're involved. Pete, you said you're talking or not talking?
I'm just a witness.
Okay. Aaron, you might as well come up as well. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Well, obviously, repeaters have been a hot topic for more than a couple of days around town since we installed the new radio system. And I'm probably the least knowledgeable to speak about the ins and outs of radio systems. I don't know if these other two gentlemen are into it. I think the two of you are probably going to be the resident experts to educate us a little bit on the need for repeaters with the new radio system, if there's truly a need, if the building ones are the way to go, or the vehicle ones are the way to go, or I don't know, Dan, if you want to bring us up to speed. I know you were pretty integral in getting the new system in place.
Yeah, I can answer your questions. I don't know how much information or what kind of information you're looking for in terms of, I think, starting with what was found earlier, starting a couple years ago, and testing within buildings and inside Bernardston would probably be a good place to start.
So I was the one that really started all this mess, questioning it, and got the letter sent out to Senator Comerford, and got the FERCog involved in it, because there was some questions that I had. Not that I'm have anything against the repeaters or anything like that there, but I had some questions, is basically whys, I guess I could say. And the first one would be, after talking to our chief, he was mentioning that prior to the patch being removed, that he felt it seemed like the coverage was better. And back when they were doing the testing, the radio seemed to be working okay. There was some dead spots, but they were happy with the way they were using. And since then, we've had an issue with the school not being able to talk, and it baffles me as to why, because we've got all those windows in the school and all that stuff, why that happens when the other system, they were able to talk to those windows and stuff, and now they can't. And I guess I'm upset with Motorola more than anything else, because I don't think they're doing a good job for us, for people overall. I think they need to be working with the folks out here to come out here and see what the problems are and seeing how we can improve this technology or whatever. And then we get into the repeaters, and there's questions on What's the best kind of repeater to use in our situation where we don't have a lot of large buildings? And there's different repeater units you can use. There's portable units. There's ones that can be put into the vehicle, and then there's building units. So that's where we're at, is where do we go from here? How do we get this thing resolved? Or do we need to put an antenna in Bernardston? What's our options?
So let's start with repeater options.
Yeah.
From what I can tell you, in order of cost, an in-building repeater system is going to be the most expensive. And that is only going to cover what is inside whatever building you put it in. Mm-hmm. The coverage would be fantastic, but you have limited scope and it's the most expensive. The next, they're pretty comparable in cost between a portable unit, they call them suitcase units, mm-hmm. and they can be put in a station, and if a officer or a fire department feels they're going to need it, they can grab it on the way out and or pull it out of their trunk or on a vehicle or something of that nature, set it up relatively quickly, and you have basically a mobile repeater. And then you have in-vehicle repeaters, which go into the trunk or in a fire apparatus, and they stay there permanently. And when you switch to the channel that's programmed into the radios, they're able to communicate. So the portable radios would communicate with the repeater, which has significantly more strength, much like a mobile radio, to reach a tower. I will say that if you have zero coverage inside of a building, it doesn't matter if you put a repeater in. So if your radio is, they call it bonking out or honking out. So these types of radios, when it comes down to zero coverage, unlike the old style radios where you didn't know if you had coverage or not, these actually alert you that you do not have any more coverage. So if you hear that honk or bonk, a repeater is not going to help you.
I would like to argue that fact. We proved it at the elementary school. In the center of the elementary school, we don't have portable coverage.
Yep.
The repeater has enough oomph to get into the school.
I wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, so the repeater does have enough oomph to get into the school and talk out.
Yep, so that's true, because your portable has enough power to get outside of the building.
Right.
Yep. So if you went to simplex mode, so if you went to direct, like on an ops or tactical channel, you would be able to go portable to portable.
Nope, we can go portable or repeater out of the school.
All right, that's great. So that's your options available to you.
We had Lou reach out to another company today. He's a company called Cybercom Incorporated out of Woburn, Mass. And he explained our situation to him. And he did say that there's probably a lead time of 6 months on getting repeaters.
It's probably pretty close, yes.
And he said that his company has just outfitted some police cars in Tufts University that was about $12,000 a unit. But then he said the single building system is called a bidirectional amplifier, and in a ballpark cost of $30,000 to $40,000. So that's $30,000 to $40,000 versus 5 vehicles at $12,000. And he said that the vehicle repeaters need to change channels to ensure the radio is being picked up, whatever that means.
The benefit to a vehicle repeater versus a BDA, the BDA is just the building.
Yeah.
The vehicle repeater works wherever we go. We have a couple houses up on Brattleboro Road where the mobiles and the trucks work, but the portables don't because of the low coverage area. Mm-hmm. Antenna sizes factor into that, among other things, and power. Where with a repeater, the portables work, the vehicle repeater. But we can't pay to put a BDA in someone's house or a business With the portable repeaters, it allows us to use them wherever the fire truck or police car is in town. As long as there's radio coverage for the mobile, the repeater will work. It may not work in 100% of a building, but it's going to work drastically better than strictly portable coverage in those buildings.
Can somebody help me understand, I'm the least knowledgeable, why the old system worked in those locations and this one does not?
Different frequency. So
Okay.
it was at 450 megahertz.
And we can't be the only community in Western Mass having this issue.
You know, a lot of communities bought the
I
repeaters.
mean, I don't know, I'm not trying to place blame either, but is there any hope the state's gonna step up and do the right thing?
It's the properties of the radio frequency of going to a higher megahertz prevents penetration inside buildings, or I shouldn't say prevents, but reduces the ability to penetrate inside buildings.
So why did they do it?
It's the state-built system that's already in service. They are doing upgrades to the system that will help, but it won't help all of our problems, which are, I mean, the upgrades are what, 2024, 2025 they're expecting to finish?
End of 23 is when we should see phase 2 completed in Western Massachusetts.
What's phase 2 do? Is it more towers or something? Or?
More towers. They're changing out the equipment. It's a newer equipment. They're going to basically they're increasing the bandwidth that you're able to communicate on each channel, so that they can have more capacity. More people can talk on the system at one time.
Will any of these issues go away with that upgrade or not?
We've been
Potentially?
told that potentially you could get better coverage, but I couldn't tell you.
It's
If,
negligible for life, so.
I mean, I'm just disappointed that we didn't have a clue this was gonna happen before we're this deep into the system. I understand the struggles you guys are going through and the police are too, so don't take us the wrong way.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty frustrated with having to lay out $60,000 in this community to put a repeater to do the right thing for you guys when it's monies we really don't have.
right.
And the
No,
state's really kicked
right.
us in the you-know-what, and that really
Now, like
tweaks me the wrong way.
Heirloom Collective is required by law to install a BDA in their building due to the size of their building and the radio reception if the testing comes back that they need it. We suspect the testing is going to come back that they need it. They're required by law to install it and maintain it at their own cost. We could do the same in, say, the school, but then we are in the same situation. We're spending $40,000, $60,000 or more to install it in the school. Then we have to maintain it every year. Additional costs with that. With the vehicle repeaters, the maintenance cost is low with them. And they're reprogrammable, so if something does change, we can reprogram them.
So what happens if we do this and we go to a location and that doesn't work? I just want,
It's
trying to
going to be
avoid
better
where
than what
we're,
we're dealing with
we're
now.
trying to avoid what we're at right now.
Yeah.
Because we
Right.
went to several meetings at GCC and this was gonna be the cat's meow. We weren't gonna have any issues anywhere, and I'm not blaming anybody because we obviously have dead spots everywhere.
Right.
Whether you're on a cell phone or you're on XM radio. I mean, it's real. But we never heard this from anybody that this was potentially gonna be a problem that I recall.
During a meeting on sometime in April 2019, I believe,
Yeah, it's all pre-pandemic, yeah.
the EOTS at the time, who was in charge of the project, came out, and they went over the physics behind the system. And in that presentation, it said they're not guaranteeing penetration inside buildings. I know that this is something that's widely known from the FCECS committee, which we rely on to get that information out to the chiefs. And we also send out updates, and we've kept the website up. So it's definitely possible that you haven't heard about having a difficult time getting penetration into large buildings. But I would like to say that it was a lot of information was out there to be had.
I think I can basically recall a presentation where somebody had some skyscrapers up on a slide, And they're saying they're gonna be a pain. Well, we don't have skyscrapers, so we never thought that we were gonna have any type of a problem out here with like a school that's wide open corridors, windows all over the place. I mean, dumbing us, I guess, but just never thought we'd have it. The other thing is, the chief tells me that he can stand out on the street and the radio beeping that got no signal and just turn, and now he's got signal. What causes that when you're in the open air?
These portable antennas portables are a lot like a cell phone, and your body, it's almost exactly the same frequency as your cell phone. These work on. It's basically a ruggedized cell phone system. If I have this tucked behind me like this, or the antenna is horizontal, I can almost guarantee I'm not going to get service in this building due to the properties of the radio frequencies. Now, if it's sitting here nice and pretty, it's gonna, I think we had, one bar when we were here on Monday in the building. But if I were to lay the radio down, we're not gonna have service. So if we're working in the building or something like that, or you have enough metal and body around the radio, it's not gonna work. The benefit to having a repeater is that instead of it talking to the tower that's 10 miles away in Coleraine, it's talking to basically a mobile repeater, a mobile tower sitting on your car outside.
So what does the state police do? Every cruiser has a...
They are putting mobile repeaters.
What is Mass Fire Services like when they come to a big fire? Do all their vehicles come out here, have repeaters in them?
Yes.
Greenfield Fire outfitted all their vehicles.
They get money for everything now.
Yeah. I was talking to earlier today is purchasing them also. There's someone else also that's trying to get more of them in.
I mean, I'm just trying to avoid we
Right.
spend 60 grand and in 6 months after they're in, we come back and say, hey, we need to do this technology now because it still doesn't work
So
over here and there. Because that's
we have
basically what I feel
We have the
now.
ability to borrow Greenfields and do some testing in town. Chief Strahan said, by all means, come take my car, test it out.
See, I thought some of these that happened with just the handhelds before we went this way. That's not true?
So there was opportunities to test, and there was 2 opportunities to test with the 800 system inside buildings anywhere outside of it. What we were hoping to do was allow departments to identify where there are dead spots throughout their town, so that, because there are going to be different than between the old system, the FCECS system, and Commerce, right? You're going to have different areas that are not going to work for you. That was also part of the process in order to inform the towns on if this was a good idea or not. This wasn't a FERCog decision, this was a town decision. All the towns decided. So you had an opportunity to test, and then we swapped over, we started the migration, and we left the patch on for about 4. The patch is basically putting the 400 system and the 800 system together so they work on either radio. You can talk seamlessly for interoperability reasons. But we actually left that on for 4 months longer than we really wanted to because it caused problems in shelter and control. But nonetheless, we wanted departments to be able to test, continue to use the system, and go back and forth. And at that time, there was multiple repeaters throughout the county that where I know chiefs would have came out and tested. I know that Deerfield sent up their cruiser and tested with Bernardston Elementary School. And from what I understand, the results were good. So that was your opportunity to sort of sort things out and understand what lay ahead.
Okay, would your knowledge of what is coming down the road in the next year or 2 years, is it advisable for a small town to go and put repeaters in all their vehicles, or is it smarter to say put repeaters in key vehicles and then have a portable unit as well to go so that somebody could take it if their vehicle doesn't have one, or that type of thing, knowing that you're saying some of this stuff might be fixed, and we don't know.
I think you got to talk to your chiefs. I think they know what's best for this community, and what's best for them.
Yeah, but do they know what's coming down, do they have your knowledge of what's gonna transpire down the road?
The only thing that's gonna change is, as was said, that you might see some improvement in areas that currently have coverage. But I don't think it's gonna change anything about penetration inside particular buildings. I don't think you're gonna see an increase in coverage within Bernardston Elementary School, or, the airline collection, those kinds of places of building. I just don't see that as improved.
Yeah.
So how you set up your repeater system, whether you use mutual aid, whether you buy one for each vehicle, whether you buy one or a couple for each department and put them in key vehicles, that's something that is a municipal decision.
Pete?
Dan might be able to answer this question. I know right from the get-go, this radio system, we had special radio pricing. And I think that's part of the reason that I'm pushing for it, Jimmy's pushing for it, is I believe that ends here, was it February or? Soon that special pricing ends and it's gonna go.
You're talking about for the repeaters?
For the repeaters, any of the radios, it's gonna.
Yeah, and future
It's
comments
gonna
got bought by
skyrocket.
Motorola 2 weeks ago, so that could potentially.
But I'm not sure when that pricing is. I know it's fairly soon, but
I think it might have already passed.
it's not helping yet.
Well, here's the
I told you soon.
here's the thing. I don't think the cost of the special pricing on repeaters there was no special pricing as part of this package. The pricing you received with the radios, you can get the free radio, you can get the upgraded radio, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't included. Repeaters weren't included in that grant package. What you got was ITT 57 pricing, so that's state contract pricing. So the repeaters aren't going to change much in pricing.
So unless state contract changes with the repeaters being purchased out.
Yeah.
I had a phone call into Motorola to update the quote that I sent Stan and sent you guys with that change happening. He doesn't expect it to be a drastic change right away, but he said within the next couple months after they sort things out, there's the potential for the price to change. But it's the salesman, so we have to.
So we got to get with Pete and tell him he's only going to get 1.5 vehicles worth of repeaters? That's going to be the tough part, is we're going to decide wrong.
What's that?
Because we're going to decide wrong, because I don't believe we can afford to put them in every single vehicle we own in the police and fire department.
I don't think we need to put them in every single vehicle we own, but I think we need to prioritize.
Because again, mutual aid was mentioned, and I know you guys have mentioned mutual aid a bunch of times, and if other communities have them as well, by the time you get your third or fourth piece to a place, you have a mutual aid truck there ahead of you.
Right.
So we have to keep that in mind.
Fuel Pulp already has one.
No, it does not. Yeah.
Currently there's 2 of them sitting behind my desk that's just waiting on the suitcase to put together for portable ones that are going to be going to a local cache. One's going to be, well, unfortunately they've already been identified and, due to availability to get them out. But there's repeaters out there. The trouble with that is, you don't know exactly what the estimated time of arrival is for that. And if you're having an issue at Bernardston Elementary School, I'd hate to have you wait for a mutual aid vehicle.
So let me ask you this question. Does it only take one repeater at the scene to work?
Depends on the size of the building and what other departments are using, your mutual aid departments are using. When you start mixing Kenwood repeaters and radios with Motorola and Futurecom,
Yeah. So
they
yeah,
start. Go ahead.
the Kenwood repeaters don't work with the Motorola radios properly. The Motorola repeater works with the Kenwood radios. The way I understood it from the meeting I had, like Northfield has Kenwood radios. We wouldn't be able to use their repeater and get all the functionality out of it. But they would be able to use the functionality of ours.
Wow. This gets muddier as
It does.
And I think that's been part of the problem. when we first started in, we had the patch, you know, and now the patch and the stuff is going. The old 400 system is failing, we're losing some towers already. So coverage, so I mean, it's sort of evolving as we go along and constantly changing, and that's why we're starting to have more and more problems, because we're losing more and more of the old system and depending on this system, and that's where we're like, it's a safety issue.
Yeah, I mean, currently you could, if you had a 400 radio around and the incident commander had 2 radios, had an 800 and a 400 radio, they would be able to, and we're inside a building, say, you could work that way, but that's kind of confusing.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
confusing me.
We did that on Higgins Branch Road the other day. The new system had borderline coverage, but we could still get out to the old system.
Yeah.
And all of our officers have multi-band radios that allow them to switch seamlessly over to the old system to talk to control.
So in the incident at the school, they could have just switched the channel and talked?
Until the old system goes down. Once we take the Franklin County system down, we're not going to have that availability anymore. We're just
Yeah,
going to
but you have that availability now. That's
right
that
for the next couple of years. But we're also only going to have simulcast 1 up, correct? Potentially on the FERCog system.
You'd have to be more specific on what you're talking about.
You're just keeping up the 400 simulcast 1 channel up, not any of the regional towers.
No, that's not true.
Okay. So depending on the regional towers that are available, whether we have coverage or not.
Okay, so I guess we got to we just have to make a decision on which way we want to go with it, because it doesn't look like it's going to get any better.
We
But,
can get coverage maps from the state police to have a little bit better idea of what the upgrades could or could not help on.
Well, I think the tough part too is going to be how many vehicles in each department we.
The fire department's a lot easier because we have 2 vehicles
Right.
that we can guarantee are going to a call.
Unless they're in another town of mutual aid.
Correct. But if we do 2, say we do an engine and the squad goes to all medicals.
I mean, if there's a Bernardston cruiser there and your other 2 are out of town, we'll go through the Bernardston repeater and the cruiser.
Yeah, so we could use the Bernardston, if say we outfitted all the cruisers, the fire department can use the cruiser repeater. But can we also guarantee that there's going to be a cruiser at every single call, or there for the entire length of the call too? The repeaters only use 1 channel, so PD would have to switch over to the fire or the ops channel for us to be able to use it also. I mean, all of our police officers are great in not minding to do that and help us out if they had the opportunity, but it would take them off the police dispatch channel to do that.
Now, you haven't talked about the suitcase thing, how you would be able to use that in the fire department.
The suitcase is nice. They're very useful. They're I shouldn't say lengthy to set up, but they do require setup. They do require someone knowledgeable to set them up. The vehicle repeaters can be set to be always on.
Okay,
So as
so,
soon as the truck starts, the repeater's working. It's good to go. You set your portable radio to the right channel and off you go. The portable repeater does require it to be powered on, channels selected, antennas set up, etc.
how long does that take, Dan, to do something like that?
Just set up a portable repeater.
Yeah,
The suitcase thing.
5 minutes.
so that wouldn't work in the case of a fire department, because normally you don't get into your trucks and take off until there's an emergency. So now on a police car, somebody that was going on duty.
Well, it's not something that you
You set it up at the scene.
You set it up at the scene once you determine you need it. It's not.
Oh, you set
something-
it up at the scene?
Yeah, it's not something that you throw in the back seat, throw 2 antennas on the roof, and it rides around with you all day working. It's something that someone like Peter I gets to the scene, opens up the back of our pickup truck, sets it up on the tailgate, gets power to it, or turns the batteries on, sets the antennas up.
Okay,
Sets the
okay,
frequencies.
okay, I was understanding it a different way. Okay, thank you
So
for that.
in an emergency, it could potentially, it's 5 minutes, you don't have that radio coverage. If it's
Right.
built into the vehicle, it's automatically, you pull up on the scene, set the parking brake, it works.
Okay.
That's definitely handier.
And like Deerfield Police, theirs are always on. They leave their portables on the repeater. So as soon as they get out of the car and walk into here, it's already doing its talking back and forth versus having to switch over channels. That's just how they're running it.
And that's Motorola as opposed to
They
Canon.
use FutureCom, yeah, Motorola.
How do you talk to Northfield now?
No, we can talk to them on the system. I'm just saying their repeaters don't have the full functionality as the Motorola repeaters do for our radios.
The biggest problem is you don't know if you have coverage or not when you start mixing the
Right.
the
The two.
repeaters. You don't, when you
I
hit
thought
the
you said
button
it
to-
honked.
Well, when you hit the button, if you have a Motorola or if you have Radio X talking to a different brand repeater in this case, you don't know if you're getting a transmission out. So it's just not as safe as it possibly should.
Could be, right.
And you can't do multiple conversations at once. You override other people's conversations. So it's just not.
Yeah. Not very feasible.
Well,
But,
it
an emergency.
works. But it takes a little bit of. It's much like the old 450 system or the 400 system, or actually farther back. It's more like a low band system where you can talk over people very easily.
Would a better radio?
No,
No, okay, okay. It's
no, you guys get those.
Those
We have
are-
8,000s and 6,000s, yeah.
Yeah, those are the same wattage, same antenna.
So I got,
It's dead.
it's dead. If I were to be trying to talk to Northfield's repeater, I wouldn't get that feedback. If I was talking to a Motorola repeater, it'd give me the feedback saying, you can't get out.
Wow.
Because on
Are you on digital or analog?
digital, sitting right here, I can key up. Everything's good. If I didn't have service, it wouldn't let me key up. It just go, "Brr, brr." But I don't even have a bar. Just like your cell phone, one bar now sitting in here. If I were to simulate not having service or a poor antenna, it takes a second, it's going to bonk out and the radio's going to turn red saying you don't have service, you can't talk out.
Okay.
Just takes a
Peter.
second for it to talk.
Another big thing, I think, especially on the police side, we want our police officers, if they're in a building, in a house, in the basement, and they get in the crap, their radio should be ready to work. They don't have time to stop. Oh, wait a minute. Put your gun down, put your knife down. I gotta get on the right frequency.
Yeah.
Make sure I can communicate.
This
And
is
it's
No,
the
you're right.
same with our firefighters. If they're in the basement and the roof collapse on them or something like that, I mean, it's gotta be something that they just pick up and boom, you have the reply and the answer.
Yeah, we may just have to think how we do business more so in the police department than the fire department.
Yeah, the police. Talking with Jim and John about the police department, they need their radios to work in seamlessly, no matter where they're going quickly. Depending what the emergency is. Fire department, we have a little bit more leeway of time to set up something if we didn't. Say we had one in 2 trucks. We have 2 trucks set up with it and a portable. And those 2 trucks right there, we had the portable. We have that leeway to set that up. Also, we can guarantee that one of those 2 trucks is probably going to be on a call.
I wouldn't think you'd want a portable one to set up to even deal with that. That's just me, but
I can almost guarantee, I think Pete can too, that either Engine 2 or the squad's going to be on a call in town. It's very rare that both of them are out of town at the same time. It would allow us to, have that covered with 2. Would we like more? Yes. Would it be helpful to have more? Yes. But if we're worried about the cost, we could at least start with that and get
We're always worried about the cost.
right.
Because that cost affects everything in this town. I mean, it
Say
does.
we were able to get a grant, though, I would suggest we go for
Yeah, find us one, that'd be great.
more.
They're telling us again, there's none out there.
But they are, I've worked with them. I've seen them work.
Yeah, I think you guys are easier to set up than the police department because of the way we don't share a cruiser at the police department where
Right.
we set up.
Yes.
Which, if money's really an issue, that would have to change. I know Chief Palmieri's probably watching, probably ready to shoot me in the back of the head, but that's okay. It's the reality of it.
I think, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but a portable repeater is probably not the best idea
Yeah.
Okay.
across the board. It is works, but it's just not
Yeah.
how you do things right.
You want it live all the time,
Okay.
not have to think about it.
They're made for FieldCom 40, for the cache, where say we end up having 6 calls going in Bernardston at once.
Right.
We're like, wow, we really need another repeater that we don't have. We can call up, or I can go get FieldCom 40 and bring it down and set it up and get it going in a large incident where you may need multiple repeaters. But like you said, it's not meant for daily use.
Now, you mentioned 2 buildings in the north part of the town that you can't get coverage in.
Yep. For lack of names, because we've been there for calls, we have a couple houses on the north end of Brattleboro Road where the truck radios, the mobiles work, which means the repeaters would work, but the portables do not. If we had the repeater in the truck, any place in that building, we would be able to use the portable and talk back and forth to dispatch.
Is it that whole area, or is just those couple?
It's the way there's an area there that has pretty poor coverage.
You're in that ravine between the mountains along Buckle Hill and the mountains along
One of the
Leiden sides.
One of the tough things about the 800 system is you either have coverage or you don't. And with the old 400 system, you could sort of hear something and maybe make some words out, but with these radios,
They're either crystal clear or you have nothing.
right. So when you go to an area with no coverage, there is no coverage. It's unfortunate that that's one of the drawbacks, but the other side of that is when you do have coverage, it's like listening to a cell phone. It's that crystal clear. Where I can tell you the FCECS was nowhere near the clarity that you get with the Comair system.
When we have service, it's great. It's an amazing upgrade. When we don't have service, it's the problem.
I mean, we do have, the upper end of Buckle Hill, there's some bad areas. The backside of Fox Hill, West Mountain Road, there's certain areas in there.
And the repeaters allow you to.
Brook Road area, there's certain valleys and peaks and valleys, and there's no signal.
The system's designed for mobile use, for truck-mounted radios with 19-inch antennas, high power compared to the portables.
Yeah, but don't-
35, 40 watts versus 4 watts.
But the old system worked in those areas.
The towers are also in
Some
different
of them still,
locations.
They were troubled areas still.
Yeah, it's a swap.
Now the repeater is what, 10 watts?
No.
10 watts on the portable side of it, from portable to repeater, and then the repeater uses the mobile radio in the truck, which is 35, 40 watts, back to the main towers. So it uses the existing mobile radio in the vehicle, and it's basically a gateway. It's a mini, big tower built in to.
And those can't be higher wattage?
No.
Okay. That's because of heat or something, or?
Battery life and just the size start going up in size. The repeater itself is, it's a decent sized unit.
Okay.
Okay, guess I,
You have any other questions?
no, I got a headache now.
This Pete got himself into another meeting with Chief Palmieri coming up, though.
Dan, I appreciate you coming up tonight.
thank you.
I know we've
Appreciate
had
it.
some conversation back and forth, I mean, through Lou and stuff, but I appreciate you showing up tonight to,
Yeah, any questions you have, it's, we'll answer them as honestly as we can. And,
we're just looking to see where down the road this is gonna get better and all that good stuff. And until then, we'll have to do what we gotta do.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think any investment you put into repeaters now is not going to hurt you later on. You're not suddenly going to get better penetration into buildings. It's just the physics of the 800 system of 800 megahertz. So you're not, you might get marginally a little better here and there, depending on where they finalize where they're going to put up towers or change to different type of antennas. It could get a little better, but the repeaters are going to be a wise choice if you're having trouble getting into, especially the school. If you,
Okay, well,
Yeah, the school we could fix with a BDA,
Yeah,
but at the same time,
limited.
that's only fixing one building versus multiple in town.
okay.
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Aaron, thank you for
Yeah.
coming
Yep,
in and
and,
helping us.
and we still have the standing offer from Greenfield to test if we want to go around as a group, and we can show you on, off, and how the repeater works to bring that out and test it out.
You said there was an availability of a map from the state police?
I have some mapping, yeah. I can get
So
some
that
mapping.
identifies where the most troubling areas are?
Yep.
That might be nice to share with us.
Yes, I'll grab my laptop and I can email everything to Lou.
Yeah.
not to discount, but those maps are for generalization only.
Right.
They're if you look at it and you go, okay, there's a spot with no coverage, it's very likely that you will drive out there and there might be coverage. And there might be a place where it shows that you have full coverage, that you do not have coverage. Those
Depends on how
maps, from working in the FCECS and through Commerce for close to 8 years now, I do not particularly trust software.
There's there's a software model. It's not an actual drive around with a truck and see what you get for service map.
Yeah.
But it gives you a general idea of.
I get very
Dead
wary when
zones.
people say, "Well, we're supposed to have coverage here." I'm like, "Oh no."
There's actually that disclaimer on the map, I think, saying that this is not.
Okay.
Excellent,
What,
perfect. Appreciate that,
Yeah.
Dan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Peter.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah, Ken said the check's in the mail today from the government.
How you doing on your pagers?
I scratched whatever funds I have and I bought 13.
Should be in by the end of next month.
We're gonna have firefighters in the papers.
Okay, so they're out there now and working?
We haven't got them yet.
End of the month, end of next month, hopefully. We have the 60-day lead time.
Just as another example, I have 0 service at my house. So if we get a call at my house, say a tree falls on me, and my wife calls 911, my pager would vibrate, but I would hear nothing. So I have to call someone or rely on Wi-Fi to know what the call even was. And then when the guys get to my house, they have no way to communicate about what the condition of me or whatever is.
Well, we'll tell you when we get there, Brad. There's a tree on top of it.
We're not putting a repeater in your house.
No, I don't know that it would even work.
Yeah, we'd have to go up there and see if the mobile worked, but.
Yeah.
But like I said before, I mean, I work over at Graves Concrete right on Route 10, and I've
Yeah.
always had a pager and stuff now. Now I get notified because I see the North ambulance blowing by the building. Oh, we must have a call. I gotta go outside.
Yeah.
I'm not getting messages. So how can you respond if you're not getting messages?
Okay, and the state's aware of all these problems and they're working on them, Dan, to try to. That's
a tough question there.
I like to ask the
Really,
question,
wow.
Dan. I'd like to-
So, unfortunately, the way that the 800 megahertz system trunking works, paging was never priority by the manufacturers. So there's only one manufacturer that makes pagers. And just trying to figure out how to page and tone out for individual departments has been challenging. It's been about a 2-year process on the software side of things with the state police, radio technicians, to try to figure out how to get it done. So the thing that we're doing is keeping up the 450 system. We don't quite yet know which towers we're going to keep up or what configuration it's going to be. Right now, we are anticipating at the very least keep the regional repeaters up, so that shelter control will be able to, until we can be sure that everybody is comfortable with the new pagers, so that shelter control can tone out on a regional tower that's closest to your community, and they will be able to get coverage on your old pagers. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Brad, do you get cell service at your house?
Yeah, a little bit.
We're not smart enough to have a system that calls all your cell phones and tells you where the fire is?
We do, yeah, so.
But we need a pager too?
I have cell service. It
Well,
works.
it's like radio, if you have radio service. If you pick any of them up, really. I mean, there's always dead spots.
Depends on where you're standing at his house.
I
Where
gotta
do you
go
have
to
it?
one corner of my house to get it.
But I would think cell service sounds like it's more reliable than a pager.
Yeah, I usually have to get it via Wi-Fi at my house.
You need to spend more time in that car, you know?
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need to put this on the talk with the finance committee on the,
Yeah, and we're gonna have to find out we'll have to have a meeting with the two chiefs to find out how many vehicles, like Chief Palmieri thinks he really needs. I mean, I understand it's safety, but my opinion is it can't just be an open checkbook that we're gonna fill every vehicle with a repeater, but that's just me.
okay.
So we need to have we'll have to set up a meeting with the two chiefs and this board and potentially some members of the finance. Okay, next up we have new business, Board of Health recommendation of a new member. The Board of Health met on November 3rd. Tricia Earl of 425 Fox Hill Road attended the meeting. She saw one of the town coordinators' reports asking for volunteers to serve on the boards and committees in town. See that? People do read them. Tricia sent along the following information: that I've been a nurse for 4 years and I've worked in the health care setting for a total of 9 years during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Transitioned from nurse management to infection prevention. Currently the infection prevention coordinator at the Brattleboro Retreat and enrolled in an accelerated associate degree nursing program. Working through the pandemic in both of my roles has given me the chance to communicate very frequently with epidemiologists and public health nurses in many communities, and infection prevention has truly become a passion of mine. When I heard about the opening on the board, I felt that it was the perfect opportunity to be more involved and give back to the community. Sounds like a good fit, and I do know the state is turning toward trying to require every Board of Health in the Commonwealth to have at least one medical professional on their boards. So it sounds to me like she'd be a great fit. So does it take a vote of this board to appoint her to that Board of Health
That is
until the
correct,
next
and
election?
that appointment will last until the next town election in May.
Make a motion to appoint Tricia Earl of 425 Fox Hill Road to the Board of Health.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Tricia, for stepping forward. Appreciate that.
And I see the town clerk sitting over there.
Yes.
I will say, town clerk, that Tricia knows she needs to come and be sworn in.
Yes, and I need to check and make sure she's a registered voter. Because if it's an elected position, they have to be a registered voter. So,
Good point.
you said Fox Hill Road?
425 Fox Hill Road.
Thank you very much.
And as we'd have it, Chris, you're next up on dog license recommendations, the fees.
Yes,
Would you like to come up and speak to that?
sure.
I think we have most of the information that you provide us.
Yeah, I threw out a quick survey to the rest of the clerk world and came up with this survey. course, I got populations from 424 to, what's the last one? 59,000 people. But anyways, so if you notice the way I have it sorted, I have it from the actually sorted by population. And we're kind of in the middle here between the low end and then it starts getting higher. And I think because I actually just today received from Kyle, from our animal control officer, the projected figures for his budget for this next year of what we're gonna have to pay. And right now, the town of Conway is looking at joining the sheriff's department for the animal control. But if they don't join, we're looking at a potential assessment of $6,222 for animal control services. If they do join, it's actually gonna save us $604, and that'll bring it down to $5,618. So last year, in the calendar year 22, I took in $2,450 in dog fees.
2,000 what?
$2,450. I'm suggesting that we, and I hate to do this to the people who are always paying and getting their licenses, but if we have to pay $5,618, I wasn't sure how we were working the budget this year to pay for animal control. I know we came in at the end of this last fiscal year, and I wasn't sure how, if Jim is budgeting for that, but we have the revolving account, which right now I don't know what the balance is in the revolving account because we haven't gotten an updated report recently, but last I knew there was like $5,600 in that. I didn't know if part of the revolving account, because I'm putting money, all my fees go into that account, I didn't know if we wanted to increase the fees and so we can cover more of what we're paying for animal control.
And I think it does, if you did come to your proposed fees, puts us still really in the middle of the road of what everybody's charging.
Oh, correct. So my thought was if we went up, basically for a male and female that's unaltered, we'd go to $20. We basically double everything, but for the kennel licenses, because Kyle has to go out and actually do an inspection, it's a little more work. I think they should be upped a little more. I think they should go for 4 dogs or less would be $35, and then $60 for the 5 to 9 dogs, and $100 for anybody who has a kennel with 10 dogs or more. And that's still fairly cheap. I mean, you can see other towns are charging $100 already, $125, $250. So, you know, it's kind of all over the place, but I think if we were to increase what we're charging, we'd be able to pay more for animal control anyways.
I don't think we've used the dog license money for animal control before.
In the past,
I'm not sure when we were partnering with Irving how it got paid. It was substantially less than this program
Yeah.
through the Sheriff's Department.
right.
And really, when the Sheriff's Department came out with the ACO this past, spring, I think it was.
Yes, yeah.
It was really a sticker shock for us, and we really need to examine where that money comes from, because in round numbers, it's about 10 times what we used to pay.
Right, it is, for sure.
Yeah, I think we used to pay only by call, per call.
Yeah, and it was way less than,
$75 like
way less
per
than
call.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
What's
So
your,
I'm just trying to help put us in a better place for paying for our
right, no,
animal
and that's,
control services.
that's really what the fees are for.
Yeah. Even though it's going into a revolving account, so I don't know if Jim is putting
can
animal
check with
control
Jane.
in his budget.
I forget,
No.
I'm not looking at it.
No.
I don't think that
No.
dollar figure, no, I think it's a separate line.
And I don't know if we can do this without
Right.
a town vote. There's-
According to town bylaw, the select board has the right to assess the fees for dog licenses.
And we could do it contingent on just making sure Donna was okay with that, if we wanted to do this.
Yeah, I
Not
mean,
that
I
we don't
looked at the
trust that, but-
bylaw, I'm just, you know,
Just cover our butts.
yep.
What's anybody feel they want to do here?
One more question. A wild guess. What percentage of the animals in town are in fact licensed?
Well, this past year, my assistant spent a lot of time, and we spent postage money mailing out letters to people who were delinquent, who didn't register their dogs, to notify us whether the dog was deceased or to come in and actually
Comes off of
register
the
them.
census. You do that.
We send it out with the census,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
And because we had a list compiled from the past several years, from when Paul was still here, and we kept all those people in there, even though we didn't know whether the people still had the dog or not, because we don't necessarily get notified. So we reached out to them by sending a letter and saying, we haven't received your dog registration. Let us know if you have a dog still or not, for one thing. And we actually ended up, the previous year, we had just under 300 dogs registered. This past year, I had to order more tags.
I remember. Yep.
And we have like 406 dogs now. So well over 100 extra more dogs actually were registered this past year. So we're trying to keep up with it, and it's up to people to.
Is there a sense of where there's a lot of them that are falling through the cracks?
Oh, I believe so.
Yeah.
But
People say, what do I get for my $5 or $10 or $20?
they don't get fined if their dog ever gets lost.
Yeah.
Because it's licensed and it's up to date with rabies. I mean, it's a state law that all dog owners are supposed to have their dogs and vaccinated for rabies. And if they're not, then that's what animal control does. They make sure. But I'm the go-between person between animal control and police department and licensing.
Increasing the fees, more people are going to drop off your list.
I don't know. I mean, it's a
It's not a
protection for
prohibitive
their
amount of
dog
money.
too. I mean, if you don't license your dog, we know who has dogs now, sort of.
Yeah.
And if they don't license them, we'll be in contact with them. And they have to give us proof. If
The ACO covers more than just dogs,
yes.
but we, for whatever reason, are focused on dogs here.
He responds to other calls.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't know what happens with those
Why do
calls.
we
If there's a
license
fine,
dogs and not cats or sheep or goats?
because it's a state law.
Because it's a state law.
Yeah, Mass General Law that all dogs under 6 months or older are to be licensed. So,
Stan?
I'm staying out of dog business.
the reason I'm asking actually now is because it's time for me to send out the census and the
Right.
forms again. And I have to do that like in the next couple weeks, get it to our vendor who's gonna be printing everything. So I wanted to see if you can get an idea if you're gonna wanna increase the fees and if we can get that settled or not, so I can update my forms before I send them all out. And
Well-
they'll go out in the mail in January, but I have to get, like I said, I have to get everything to our vendor in the next couple weeks.
The fee is going to be increased to the taxpayers one way or the other. In other words, if we don't increase it here to the people that actually own the dog, so they're paying for their dog, then we're going to have to put the whole amount of the animal control officer onto the warrant, and all the people in town are going to have to pay it.
I think you should pay for my dogs.
Yeah. Well, that's just
No, you're right.
my thinking about it. So,
Yep.
I mean, I don't like to put the increase anything, but I don't see where going from $5 to $10 for your dog is. I don't want to use any bad words. I mean, I think that's kind of a reasonable thing, no, because you own the dog, you're gonna pay a little bit more than a person that doesn't own a dog. Because everybody's gonna be paying something, because you're still gonna have to raise and appropriate some money to put into that animal control officer
Yeah.
somewhere in the budget.
And it does still keep us in the middle of the road from the towns that Chris surveyed. You want to make a motion to that effect, Stan, or not?
I'll make a motion to increase the fees for dog licenses as put forth by the town clerk and contingents of review from the town council.
Second.
Any other discussion on that? All's in favor?
Aye.
I do have one question. Chris, the number you gave me for the kennel 4 or fewer dogs, you said $30, but when you just spoke, you said 35. So which is the correct number?
Well, I was looking at that thinking it made more sense, because if you're increasing your price on your neutered and your other dogs, they'd basically be getting, if they have, I was looking at the numbers, and I thought 35 made more sense than 30. I know, it's only $5.
I just want to make sure that we've got this all, we're all on the same
Yeah.
page.
Reflected, yep.
Because if a person has 4 dogs or less, and if they have a unaltered male or female, they're gonna have to pay $20 each. So that'd be $40. If they had a third dog, they'd basically be getting a third dog for $5. So they kind of get a discount in there for if they end up with 4 dogs. So I thought if we kept it at 30, they're really making out. I'm just trying to use different scenarios, and I thought, well, 35 is,
Keep it as low as you can.
yeah, and still make it, reasonable.
Still a deal for 4 dogs.
Yeah, I mean, you can see what some of the other towns are charging. Some charge $250, doesn't matter how many dogs you get. $250
You
right
ever been to
across the
Sherburne?
board. No,
Those people can afford anything.
they only have 4,400 people.
So 35 is the number you want there?
35 is the correct
35
number.
for 4 or less. 60 for
This is
5
5
to
to
9,
9.
and 100 for anybody with 10 dogs or more. And then I didn't know if we should increase the late fee to
Yeah,
$25.
I think we did enough damage here.
We did enough damage?
Yeah, for 1 year.
I think it should be, and it's $15 per dog anyways, for a
The
late fee. Yeah. So
Okay.
you want to keep the late fee 15?
Yeah, because that's on
Okay.
top of the fee.
The new fee.
So they-
Correct, correct.
So instead of paying $10, they'd be paying 35 if they had a neutered. If they
Instead of
if they had
paying
a
20, they're
neutered,
going to be paying 35. Yeah.
if
yeah.
they're late.
It can hurt them in the pocket if they
So
Yeah,
don't.
for
I've
sure.
got to be on time for change.
Yeah.
And we give them long enough. I mean, we don't start, we send out the census form and the dog licenses, registration forms go out in January. Their current licenses expire March 31st. And then we still give them until June 1st to get them licensed. And the penalty doesn't go into place until after June 1st.
And also depends on, and it's, when did they have their last rabies shot? Now, say for something happened and they didn't get their last rabies shot until June, and then they got to make the appointment, because they're not going to get it until, they have to wait until that anniversary date to have it. So what happens then? If they contact you, would you say okay?
If they have a valid
Yeah.
rabies certificate, when I receive their registration, I'm assuming that if their rabies certificate expires in 2 weeks, I'm assuming they already have an appointment made and they're gonna go get them
Right.
taken care of.
Yeah.
You can't keep on top of every
Right,
single
no,
one. So
okay.
as long as they have, and they have to provide us by law with a certificate of,
Certificate.
yeah, rabies.
Okay.
Yep.
All
So
right.
you would waive their, if they contacted you, you would waive their late fee saying you come back in here in 2 weeks with that piece of paper, and then if they contact you before the late date came in effect.
Yeah, I mean, I can work with
Okay,
people. if-
very good. Okay, very good. Okay, yep. Okay. That
you,
sounds
Chris.
good.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Okay, next up we have some BES usage request forms. And the first one is the Bernardston Rec Department. Would like to use the school Friday, December 9th from 4 to 8 p.m. Saturday, December 10th from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they're looking to use the cafe and the gym to host a craft fair as a fundraiser for their rec department. They have gone to the principal at the school, Cynthia Schultz, and she has approved it.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Okay, the next one is Cub Scout Pack 3. They would like to use the cafeteria Mondays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the winter months. They cover Greenfield, Bernardston, Gill, Turners Falls, Leiden, etc. So it's Cub Scout Pack 3. This one as well was signed off by the principal at the school.
Yeah, they meet on cold winter days, need a temp controlled meeting place. Okay, yeah. Okay. So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next one, we have the Bernardston PTO. They want to use the cafeteria on the 18th of November from 4:30 to 9:30 for a community painting night with pottery and free snacks for the students of BES. This one has been signed by the principal as well.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have one more for BES. It's the Pioneer Youth Basketball Association looking to use the gym Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 5 to 6:30, but will accept any 90-minute block for basketball practices in November through March. They state they're a nonprofit. The principal did approve this one, but Lou did go back and look at the records from a previous BES use request that we approved for Bernardston Rec for their basketball programs, and it conflicts with those times of the Bernardston Summer Rec. So in a discussion that Lou and I had, we were suggesting we send this one back to see if they want to come up with a different 90-minute window that could work with the Summer Rec.
I agree that we send it back.
Okay, so I'll leave that one on top for you for that.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna skip the land donation for half a second and go to the gas tank quote to try to get that one out of the way here.
You want to go to the gas station.
See that one there, Stan?
Yeah, they
This
got
is we had asked for Brian Miner and Lou to work up a more narrowed down scope and cost for installing a gas storage tank at the highway garage. And we've all received a copy of it for the 500-gallon tank delivered, $5,972.40 to pour the concrete pad, which the highway guys will do, was $650. The electrical estimate was at $2,500. And for the software and the pedestal, which is the gas pump with the software to have individualized users, was $9,147. And there's an annual fee that comes with that software, $348 annually. So to install it, which includes the annual fee, for $18,617.40. We would just have to remind Brian, I'm sure he remembers this, that this fee would have to be into his budget annually. And he also, in the last paragraph on it, has a good suggestion here, that with budget season upon us, the board, or this is Lou's suggestion, I guess, not Brian's. The budget season upon us, the board and the finance committee should give serious consideration to putting all departments' fuel purchase allocations into one single account. Usage reporting by department would come into the town coordinator's office. Also, the town will save nearly 50 cents a gallon once this tank comes online. So currently that would be, Lou, and correct me if I'm wrong, would just be for gasoline, not diesel at this point.
Right, this is just the gasoline. I know that in a previous conversation, Brian had mentioned potentially replacing the diesel tank, but this one is strictly the 500-gallon gasoline.
And I know I had a side conversation with Brian, and some of this might be good to make sure this all was working the way we all think it is, and then potentially move on to diesel fuel.
Yeah, because I don't know why I was just thinking, and I know the fire trucks use diesel, but some reason I was just thinking highway. So when he mentioned maybe changing out that diesel tank to a different tank, I wasn't interested in listening to that. But and then for some reason tonight, it just dawned on me. Hey, listen, we got these other trucks too that we're paying, and diesel fuel is more expensive than gasoline.
Big time.
So I would like to see us look at that avenue, and also look at through our capital strategic to see if they can find us any grants to install diesel tanks for our fire department, and we put it at the highway garage. What do you guys think of that? Find that, because I think it's a win-win.
Well, it's definite savings. Huge
This
savings.
here's a win-win for us, because we're going to have we're going to be saving the town money, and it's going to be a one-time purchase. So, yes.
Does that software pedestal, for lack of better terms, accept multiple pumps / tanks? So it can be upgraded in the future with an additional tank, or is it?
Good question, I don't know.
Yeah, I
Because
don't,
that would be helpful to know, because then you're just purchasing a tank later versus having to upgrade the current system to accept the second fuel source.
yeah, we should go down the road of pricing out that tank anyway, but
Right.
we can ask that question when he does.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if multiple vehicles are gonna fuel out of that tank, is there a way to know which vehicle is?
That's what software.
It's going to be within the computer software.
Okay, I
Yeah.
missed that part.
Yep.
They have it at Dead River, and
Yeah.
we use it now, it works really well.
And there'd be a way that
What pump you want.
they're going to work out yet to be determined for turning the power on and off, whether you have a key that accesses an external switch to turn
Well,
it
I'm just
on.
concerned about our
Yeah.
green community reporting,
Yeah.
because we need to make sure that each department
It'll
is
definitely break it
separated,
down,
so we
yeah.
keep all that squared away.
Every vehicle will have a certain code, and we
Yeah.
can break it down by that code.
I'm familiar with the system.
It might be easier, actually, than what you're doing now.
I think
at the
Sarah
end of the
just
day.
lumps it all together for each department and what
Gotcha.
they've used for
Yeah.
fuel.
So what do we want to do with this one? Do we want
I'm in favor of it.
We
but
talked about-
I haven't heard anything from Ken, so I don't know if Ken.
I'm absolutely in favor.
to, and we were, the funding of source for the funds?
I was going to use ARPA.
Well, we've got ARPA, but we've also got that earmark.
Which is going to expire before the ARPA from
Yeah.
Comfort.
Okay. And we don't have anything on the garage doors yet.
Well,
We saw that. We
yeah,
saw that.
the
That's going to be
preliminary
on the town
engineering.
board report, so we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd make a motion that we go ahead and install a 500-gallon gasoline storage tank at the highway garage, not to exceed $18,617.40, and use the, what do we call it, earmark money that we got from Senator Comerford.
Second.
Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And you might as well have Brian just move on and start talking about the diesel
Okay.
with these
Yes,
vendors
yes.
as well. It might be better to pour 2 pads or one
Okay.
big pad.
Yeah, it's
And
right
then we
here.
can find out about the software. That's a good question.
And like Aaron was saying, they use, they have to get gas for the generators, for their chainsaws and stuff. It'd be right here, it's close to them.
Yeah.
It works out, I think it'll work out great.
And that's tied into the emergency generator at the highway garage, so if we had loss of power, we'd still have access to power that.
Will that software need to communicate with a computer so you can print out
That's,
reports, or?
that's,
It's all cloud-based.
that's at $9,000.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. Never mind. Technology.
Things that were easy.
Yeah, no,
technology.
it's not, but that's,
Okay, now we'll back up to the land gift. And Lou, I'm gonna kind of look to you for that one for a second. I know you had a communication with the current landowner for the land gift in the area of Pratt Field.
Yeah, just to review over the last couple of meetings, a landowner adjacent to Pratfield was looking to donate 5 acres of land back to the town. Those 5 acres only generate about $163 in annual property taxes. I followed up with the landowner after getting a response from Donna McNichol that said that on the surface it all seems good. Yes, it would have to go to a town meeting vote. In following up with the landowner, she said that the only restriction that I would request is that for the duration of my occupancy of the home contiguous to this piece of property, the land remain in the non-public use open space category of Chapter 61A, or that the tenants of non-public use open space still be honored, whether in 61A or not. Now, I know in a previous conversation, we speculated that maybe the Snowmobile Club could potentially have access to that land. This request seems to go against that. So this is for the board to decide if we want to move forward with accepting that land donation, getting it through Donna, getting onto a town meeting warrant, or if it just is going to end here and now.
I mean, my opinion would be, I think it's still wise for us to accept the land. It still does protect the aquifer in that area a little more by the town having some more control of that contiguous land. Yes, it is a little disappointing that we might not be able to use pieces of that for recreation, such as the Snowmobile Club. But that doesn't mean the Snowmobile Club could not approach this landowner and ask for permission and then come to us for permission for that specific use. Whether it be granted or not, who knows? But I mean, I don't know how anybody else feels. Ken, you have any thoughts one way or another?
I'd like to obviously see the Snowmobile Club be able to get access.
Right, I think that was a big
That's
plus.
what's that?
I would much prefer to have the donated land be accessible to the Snowmobile Club for their trails. But failing that, there's no reason not to accept the land.
You have any thoughts, Stan?
Now, I would ask if the, I agree we should accept the land. I'm like you folks, I'm disappointed with the condition, but maybe she would agree on the condition as long as she's occupying the house. And then once that's over, then that restriction goes away. I'd like to see it like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because she's lived there and got her places set up the way she wants it and the quietness and all that stuff. So I would agree with until she moves, and then after that it's just town property and use it as you see fit.
Yeah, and she did extend an invitation to the board to walk the property and refamiliarize yourselves with it.
Right.
I can follow up with her and see if she might be amenable to snowmobile use or something along those lines.
Yeah, and even if she wants to, if we could meet with her, I mean, my schedule is freeing up after this week
Yeah.
to some degree in the afternoons. At 3 o'clock, it's still somewhat light out, or on a weekend.
Yep.
To meet with her there, and we could have just a friendly discussion about it, because this is going to take a little process to get
Right,
on a town
exactly.
meeting warrant anyway.
Exactly,
It's not like we could make it happen tomorrow.
right.
The Snowmobile Club also can put a restriction on the time being that that trail can be accessed and used.
True, that's a good point, yeah.
Usually they try to not have people going, snowmobiles out at 11 o'clock at
Right.
night, so.
Right,
Yeah,
maybe
but I'm just saying, while she's living there,
Yeah.
we should comply with whatever wishes she would like for herself.
Yep.
That's-
so it sounds like we, still want to
Okay,
move forward
I'll
with that
follow
one.
up with her and report back to
Yeah,
the
we'll
board.
talk.
Thanks.
Okay. That's the land. Okay, next up, the charity lot request. Everybody has that in their packets. It's one that we've seen already. It's one that we requested some more documentation for because it comes with none. And our past practice has been to pay a vendor directly when there's a hardship. People's thoughts on the one they have?
There doesn't seem to be any change to the information in front of us, and
I 100% agree with that.
so it's disappointing that
Right.
we did communicate with the,
Yes.
and we're going to pass on it.
Yeah, I'm with
I can't
Ken. I
support
don't
it.
know, Stan, how you feel.
And so what we need to do, we need to have the income,
We typically pay the vendor themselves. We
okay,
don't.
yeah, and we only pay up to 1,000.
Right, that's the maximum amount we can.
Yeah. So we'd have to know, we just have form again, we'd have to go back and have to come back with who we'd pay.
Right.
We cannot pay it out to an individual, we have to pay it to the vendor, that's the rule.
Need any more on that, Lou?
No, very clear. Thank you.
Sorry, Ken. You good? Okay, next up, we have under other business, I'm gonna pull up, we had a request from Brian Minor, who is a little short-staffed right now with some illness and some other things happening over there with some folks. He's had a request for some temporary help, which will be compensated out of his payroll fund. He doesn't need any additional funds to do this. He's asking for, and I believe Ken's going to recuse himself
Yes.
on this, but he's requesting that we appoint David Allen as a temporary plow driver on nights and weekends, as he has a full-time job. And he's also requesting to appoint Danielle Bordewick as a temporary truck driver, daytimes, 6 to 4, hours as needed and as she has time. Between the two, we'll make it work until we get one employee who happens to be out on some disability currently.
Knowing our superintendent and how he operates and knowing what he was facing to deal with by himself with a potential storm being a lot worse than what it was last night, but he was going to deal with it. I strongly urge us to go along with his request, and I make a motion in that effect to go along with his request to hire David Allen and Daniel Bordewick to be temporary drivers for him until his help gets back.
And I'll second that. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And thank you to Brian for going out and tracking down some people. It's a pretty tight labor market, and it sounds like those two folks will work out pretty well. And with that, we'll get to the town coordinator's report.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick bullet points over the last couple of weeks here in the office. Got a letter or an email from DEP the other day. We are pleased to inform you, it's always good when it starts that way, we're pleased to inform you that your municipality has been awarded a Sustainable Materials Recovery Program municipal grant from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. This is the grant that goes into the Recycling Dividend Fund, $5,250. So knowing that there's been an increase in the cost of processing recyclables, and we can use a portion of that money to offset that, it really comes at a good time. So that's a good thing.
Be a good one to make sure you send that to Jane if you would.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second up, we touched on it briefly, the highway garage. I forwarded drawings from structural engineer Dan Chapman for your perusal. I haven't gotten any comment back, so I'm guessing that everybody was satisfied with them. If there are no changes, I'll follow up with him, and we'll get finalized versions, stamped versions, that we'll need to move forward with the door widening project. And speaking of the garage, I know Chris was in contact with an outfit called Green Collar to get the installation on the schedule. Last we spoke,
Advanced energy.
the last we spoke, the earliest they could start is January 23rd. That date is still,
I haven't heard
Okay.
anything. Brian, I told her to reach out to Brian Miner to get that scheduled,
It's
so
best.
he's aware. I mean, it's his building. He's the one that should be scheduling the time to have the work done. But at least we have an idea now of when we can get Jeff in there to do the plywood
Right.
and when it has to be done by.
yeah, and I believe Brian was meeting with Jeff yesterday, I think, or the day before he saw him. So they've probably got that in
So if
motion.
you see Brian in the mornings, I know he's in here sometimes early, if you can just ask him if Green Collar
Okay,
contacted him and, you know, if they've set up a time and a date, that would be good to know.
I shall.
Thank you.
As far as the drawings, I would say as long as Brian has reviewed them thoroughly and he's all set with those measurements and stuff, then
Yeah, and they did say specifically on them preliminary,
Right.
not for bid.
Yeah, which was not on the last batch that we got.
Yep.
Last item of interest, the Public Safety Intermunicipal Agreement. I was on a Zoom call with Mike Edwards from the Collins Center at UMass Boston and attorney Liz Leiden from Mead, Tellerman and Costa the other day. That's the firm that's representing us. We're towards the finalized IMA with the town of Leiden. Since that Zoom call, there's been modifications going both ways. Been kind of interesting, but a lot of lawyers speak in there, so kind of observing, but not really trying to fine-tune anything that's out of my realm. And we're hoping at this point that they're going to have a finalized and agreed upon version of the IMA in time for the next Public Safety Committee meeting.
And I think if I can jump in, once that's approved by both select boards, that opens up their grant money
Correct.
so that we can pay our lawyer, they can pay their lawyer.
Yeah, and they were very clear. There was some question about how the lawyer was going to be paid, because I, who processes so many of the bills that come through here, I had a concern with it because I know that Mead, Tellerman and Costa is going to build the town of Bernardston, and I asked both of them, and it was kind of interesting to see the deer in the headlights look on the screen because they really hadn't considered this. Yes, the money's there, and Mike Edwards had to go back to, I believe it was Sean Cronin with DLS, to get the approval. So they're going to have to figure out how they can actually invoice us so that we meet all the state's criteria. But yeah, the lawyer fees are going to come out of the grant. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Stan, do you have anything new you'd like to add?
I'll take that just a little bit further on the our policing with Leiden. It seems to be working very well. They're going to have some more public hearings up there to bring their folks up to speed a little bit more on the changes. We're not going to see changes here in Bernardston. Our patrol will be the way it is. Leiden's the one that's going to see most of the changes. And I believe they will be willing to, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe they'll be willing to fund the repeater for their police cruiser. We have their police cruiser now, and when that'll be in a cycle to be cycled out in a new car. When that new car comes in, that will be designated as the Leiden car. And if we, in the agreement, that car goes back to Leiden. So that's why they'll follow that paperwork as far as that goes. But that's that. And then today we had a Zoom meeting with Capital Strategic on the grant funding for the memorial. So far, it looks like the total price is going to be somewhere around $33,000 that it's going to cost to bring that up, so we are honoring all the veterans in the town. There's some paperwork that's got to get done. Marvin Shedd is working diligently on letters and stuff to, we need letters from the community people of, what I want to use, not
They
com,
had, well, the civic organizations, Kiwanis,
no, letters of letters of,
support.
support, letters of support for doing it. They're going to need that. We need a topographical map. Contacted COG today, and they said they'd be able to do that for us. Marvin is writing up a letter of support that we could, once he gets that done, we could probably share with people to see if we can get more people to sign on to it, to get that in there. And we need to come up with the funding source for the town's part. And we'll need to have that in place by January 8th, so that'll be taken care of. They also mentioned that there's also a grant for the open space and recreational update. And I did tell her, yes, send that information to us, even though we're doing it. If we can get some more money to make this thing happen, why not?
It depends on what the grant is. If it's a technical assistance grant, FERCog is already gonna be
Okay,
applying
well,
for that.
she's gonna send it to him, he'll review it with you, and, but it's there, so I said, we'll go after anything that we can possibly get. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of grants that are actually doing a lot. You still can't find anything for the police, for the radios. There is still a chance of getting funding for the fire department, and she's still working with that. She's been in contact with Peter. So hopefully things will work out.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Ken, you have anything to add?
I do not.
And I think I am good as well.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.